Several years ago, my dear friends Bo and Elizabeth introduced me to the masculine and feminine embodiment work that they were doing with Amir and Keri Khalighi. I love somatic practices, so I joined Keri's Women's Circle with Elizabeth, and it was incredible. And being in circle with Keri continues to be a beautiful ritual in our lives. I'm excited you get to meet Keri today, and you'll meet Amir on next week's episode to hear how their work separately and together is helping people connect in a deeper way with themselves and others. As a somatic guide, Keri invites you into a deep listening to your truth and the rhythms of the natural world. With decades of experience in embodiment, birth work, trauma healing, and sacred rituals, Keri's circles and workshops are deeply intuitive. Through breath work, expressive movement, tea ceremonies, and poetry, she gently shepherds you into the quiet power of your own knowing. Oh, you are going to love how she moves through the world. So let's get the skinny from Keri Khalighi. Keri, I'm so excited to hold space with you and get inside this beautiful tapestry of your life.
Mm.
I want to ask you about what it was like to be thrust into the modeling world from small town Nebraska.
Yeah, I think I didn't actually know what was happening at the time. Uh, Looking back is a totally different thing than when I put myself in the position of that 13-year-old girl who flew from Blair, Nebraska to New York. And at the time, I was young. And even though I was naive and very shy, oh, bless that little one, I was so shy and so out of my element. But I had that thing that a lot of young people have, which is just fearless, like that, the fool of the tarot, just like walking off the edge of the cliff, quite happy because there's I didn't really know that much. So I quite happily just, met the moment of that and was thrust into a very grown up world that I was not uh, equipped for, but I learned trial by fire, and I learned as I went.
What did
And
you learn?
hmm, I learned how to survive in a very I, to use the word inappropriate is it's not quite right, but what I'm a mom of four daughters now. So when I can't help but think back to that version of myself, and I feel this fierce mama bear one in me, just like loving that version of myself. And so from this standpoint, I would say that's an incredibly inappropriate situation for a teenager to be in. I would never let my daughters do that. And my daughter, when was it? Last summer, she was vacationing in London with a friend, and she was approached by a modeling agent and given a card, and she went into the agency, and the whole time I was just biting my lip, and because I wanted to just yell no, but I know with a teen you have to be very artful and strategic. And so all that to say, I did not want that for my daughters. And so when I think back to what I learned, um, I learned a lot about how to shut down, how to shut how to shut down to kind of get along. I had a lot of angels along the way, a lot of really traumatic things happen along the way, and a lot of incredible. If I if I was a writer and I remembered more, it would make an incredible memoir because there were some just fun and fabulous times, champagne in the morning and like mini skirts and sunglasses and huge Vivian Westwood coats and being just young and fabulous and making a shit ton of money and not having a lot of responsibilities besides flying around the world and showing up to work on time. There was a lot of partying that happened in order to, I think, cope or feel like I fit in. I really did have that fish out of water because I really was. I really was.
And so you said you learned how to shut down. So what did that look like? And then how did you open up again?
Well, it's been a decades long journey, like a hero's journey, so to speak. And again, I mean, I can name it that, sitting from my standpoint now with the nervous system education that I have and the embodiment wisdom that I have. I can look back and see, oh, I really had to shut that feeling part of myself off. There wasn't time or any safe, there wasn't a safe space to be as terrified as I think I was deep down. I have a 16-year-old daughter in the house in there. And when I think about her navigating Paris and Germany the way I was alone going on, they called them go-sees back in the time, but all these appointments all around the city, in the north and then in the south, and then 2 o'clock it's over there. And I was navigating the city and the subways and the buses, and I had my Filofax. There were no smartphones. Everything, I had to find a payphone and call my family if I wanted to connect. And it was a different time. And I was navigating that on my own. So at that point, I was 14. And so I think I just had to shut down a lot of my sensitivity, which I'm naturally a very sensitive being, but there wasn't space, or that wasn't really allowed. I wouldn't have been able to function and survive had I felt all of the things I felt. So I learned to kind of, I think, on an unconscious nervous system way, shut down, go along to get along,
Mm.
party at night because I felt okay then. And I happened to I happened to couple with a I was in a 7-year relationship during that time with a slightly older man who was much more worldly than I. And as much as that relationship had its unhealthy aspects for sure, there was also, he provided me the sense of safety and uh, some sort of stability while I flew out around the world, quite literally on a plane every 2 to 3 days, which was wonderful on one aspect, like, travel, best education ever. But it was someone I could come home to. He was always there, always there. I mean, smoking his brains out, but he was always there. And like that was okay with me. Um, yeah.
And then what was it like coming out of that world and then
I,
stepping into something that was, I want to say more realistic, but I'm not even sure if that's the right word to use. What word would you use?
well, certainly more real for me, for who I am, my essence, my soul, my what I know as my soul path now. It, it's really interesting from an astrological standpoint. It was just at my solar return at 29:30 that I closed the door on modeling. And
Mm,
simultaneously, that simultaneously happened with me becoming a mother. And
mm,
at that point, I was really clear. Oh, I was done. I was done. I was, I think, really wanting to close the door on modeling. I had done it, and I had done it in up and down and all around in every direction. Like I did all the things I wanted to do in that world, and I did it well, and I was done. I was complete. And so it felt like a relief to be done. And being pregnant and stepping into motherhood gave me a really good excuse, kind of. It was a really good reason to close the door on that, because all I ever really knew I wanted was to be a mother.
mm.
And and so it allowed me to fully just give everything. I didn't have to divide myself. I didn't have to think about work. I was fully dove into motherhood, and really turned and then left that world behind. It's truly complete.
Yeah. And so as you closed that door and then this other world opened up as a mother, what did you step into there in terms of swimming around with the essence of you?
You know, as you're speaking, I'm realizing there's all these. Sometimes I like things to be really neat and tidy, but I'm realizing no, there was a really important overlapping piece that happened, which was probably like maybe 3 years before I closed the door entirely on modeling. My father got really sick. He got cancer, and I went to take care of him. He didn't really have anybody else in his life at that point. That's a whole other story, but I was called to go and really heal my relationship with him. We'd been estranged for the better part of my life, but I took that opportunity to go care for him, and it was a beautiful, horrifying, just exquisite experience for the last 2.5 years of his life, and taking care of him in a really intimate way really healed something for us. And now he's on the other side and we're incredibly close, and he's such an ally to me. Really grateful for that time. But what happened during that time is I felt there was this deep fulfillment in caring for him, and sort of midwifing him out. And I thought, maybe there's something here for me, because I had already wanted out of modeling. I'm like, I'm kind of done. It doesn't really fit me. What if there's something here? What if I become a midwife? No, no, no. First it was, what if I become a nurse? Like, I help people like this. I help people who are sick. And I thought, no, 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 no. That's like too dark and difficult. But what if I'm on the other side of life? What if I become a midwife? And so in researching that, I discovered this thing called doula. And to
Mm.
become a doula, it was a much shorter, easier path in. I realized I could become certified and start working as a doula quite relatively quickly. So that's what I did. So the that initiation portal of my father being sick and eventually passing opened up this new place, which was really my first opening into the body and women's bodies and the stories that our bodies carry, which, if you look at the book many chapters later and where I'm at now, I realized, oh, that was the genesis in and now it's more metaphorical, like what we're birthing as women, not necessarily babies, but what we're birthing, ideas, new versions of ourselves, and through the body, which is the field that I work in, is the body. So I realized that was the beginning.
Yeah. So as you journeyed with yourself and forming this beautiful relationship with your body, and also being able to intersect with other people on that journey as a doula, as a mother, shepherding your father through that transition, what was the next iteration of that in your 30s when you worked with Michaela and really started exploring other parts of embodiment?
Mm-hmm. Gosh, it's so interesting because I'm noticing the similarity. And so the death of my father heralded this birth of this new chapter for me. And likewise, the death of my marriage at that time pushed me into this embodiment work where I got myself. We spoke about this earlier. I I got into the work. It was David Data's work initially, and then
Mm.
I went on to do the women's work that Michaela was holding. And I got into the David Data's sexual polarity, that kind of work to save my marriage. But what I really got through Michaela's work was I really got me. I really got me in a deeply embodied way that I hadn't had before. And that was a big initiation for me into just feeling myself in a certain way, giving myself permission in a certain way, and feeling empowered, getting in touch with what do I need, and how does that flow into what my boundaries are, what's okay, what's not okay, and And then really, really coming to terms with the end of that marriage, which was so profound for me, because I think most people going into marriage don't think that it's going to end. And
Yeah.
especially if you come from, if you're a child of divorce, I think we have a particular thing that's like, okay, I'm not going to recreate that. I would never do that. And then, I found myself there, and I found myself at that, like the edge of the cliff, about to jump off, and realizing, uh, it's a very layered decision. And I realized that I would be, tearing my family apart and bringing my children and their broken hearts along with me. So took me about 4 years to reckon with that. And but I got myself through Michaela's work, and that really, really catapulted me into a new place in my life. Kind of that era right after my divorce was a real renaissance. And I stayed with Michaela and did that work deeply for many years. And that um, kind of flowed into doing some more classical tantra work, sort of neo tantra. And then I found a very, very classical, um, like classical old school, like old tantra teacher, Anita Rubio. And we started to go into the womb and do womb work, and again, women's bodies and the wisdom and the stories that they hold. And asked me a question to bring me back, because I'm swimming in my.
No, I'm enjoying just swimming around in these threads that you're pulling together. When you were in this renaissance and being a single mother of these young girls and figuring out what was going on in your body and giving yourself permission, as you say, to have that experience while you're role modeling a strong woman or a vulnerable woman or an open woman for these young girls. What was that like in terms of the permission journey? I'm just fascinated by
Mm,
that. How the embodiment continued to invite you to lean into that.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that permission piece was key for me in going from I will do whatever it takes to keep this marriage together, to really getting real about, wait, what am I modeling for my children? And and is who I'm being, because I know that that's how our children learn everything. Is it's not what we're saying or the lessons we teach. It's the lessons we're living, is how we're being. And I realized I was modeling um like a lot of separation and unfulfillment. And
Mm.
so that was what allowed me to really, it felt like jumping off this cliff into the unknown. But what really also allowed me to have the permission to jump off it is I held this flame in my heart of what I knew. I just had a sense of what I knew a partnership could feel like. And it wasn't that my marriage was horrible. We never even fought in front of the kids, but I wasn't met. I wasn't met in all the ways. And I deeply, deeply need that. Some people, I think, are wired, they're very ambitious in their careers, or they, are led by their, yeah, purpose out in the world. Like for me, I'm a very relationship oriented person. So for me, to not have those intimate needs fully met, I'm like walking around like limping, like don't have all my extremities. So I let that flame and that knowing of like, okay, this is okay. I could sort of cut part of myself off, the part of myself that needs this and this and that. And because there's security here, and he makes me laugh sometimes, and but I was so deeply unhappy for real. And so that flame of what I just imagined or knew love could be and partnership and finding a mate, that also had me jump off the cliff. And I said, you know what, my daughters deserve to see me met in that way and fulfilled in that way and radiant in that way. And I don't know what it's going to look like or if it's going to come, but I kind of believe it is. And when I met my now husband, which was a few years after that, we met through poetry in a way, and he wrote this poem talking about that inner flame.
Mm.
And uh, and when I met him, it resonated with that flame, and I'm like, oh, there you are. There you are.
The twin flame is a beautiful thing. I want to ask you though about finding that intimate connection with yourself
Mm.
and being whole within yourself so that you could invite in Amir, who was also on that journey of being whole himself, so that you could meet in this place of true intimacy and connection.
Yeah, well, I think that the beginning of that was having the courage to walk away from something that really wasn't mine. And
Mm.
it was the most courageous thing I've ever done in my life. It was the hardest thing by far at that point. That was the hardest thing, the most courageous thing. And I knew it and I did it. And there's something that like there's something that happens like, whoa, that sovereignty and knowing that, wow, I can trust myself to do the hardest, most courageous thing because I value myself and my life in that way. There's something that happens when you're willing to do that. At least for me, that was my thing. And then, simultaneously I'm doing this work of embodiment and really going into the crevices of exploring my sensuality and my sexuality. That had been something that had been cut off in my earlier years. So to reclaim that piece for myself and really understanding, like especially in my maiden years, there was this idea that somebody was going to come and bring me pleasure or do it to me or something like that. And what I really understood is, no, the pleasure's mine. My pleasure is mine. Let me really get to know it. And then I have it to share with somebody when that time comes. It's not like
Yes.
someone's going to come and like do me like there's I really had that mentality like someone's going to do it to me, give me put no. So I got to really explore that and have that and then really have that claimed in order to then share that with somebody. And that's really fun when it happens that way.
Yeah, but you and Amir didn't meet and then whoosh, we're going to couple up.
No,
So
no,
talk me
because
through that evolution.
mhm. So I'm just, I'm just, I'm just paddling. I'm like, which version am I going to tell? Like, what? So, you know, I'll just say this. I'm sure there's at least one or two people listening who have been in a relationship where there's like you're kind of a wilting flower dying in the desert. Like let's just say, for example, in the sexual arena, like your sexual needs are met.
Oh,
Hypothetically
I think there's
speaking,
more than one or two people listening who can relate
yeah.
to that.
So I walked away from that aspect in my marriage, and then it was like, woohoo! Like, let's go, let the pendulum swing. And so I got into a beautiful relationship that I guess was really, it was sexual healing. And that was what it was. And that lasted for about a year and a half. And that was beautiful and needed to, it was like, yeah, rain in the desert. But that was, there's a reason, a season, or a lifetime. That was for a reason, and that really was coming to an end. Um, and so that was coming to an end, and that was a process. And as that was closing, my antennas or my energies were starting to open to even be aware of other men or other energies in my field. And Amir came in, and likewise at that time he was ending a relationship, and we met over Facebook. We didn't meet over Facebook, I guess, sort of, kind of. We were friends somehow through various overlapping communities, but it was just at that time, I don't know, the algorithm gods put him in my feed, and he was on a trip, and I was following his travels. And I think because that relationship was ending, I was really open to this man who was a beautiful mix of father, sober man, martial artist, poet, nature lover. Like I was just really taken by him, all the while following his travels. And uh, I commented when it was his sober birthday, and I just snuck in that I too, at that point, I was not sober. I was sober for 16 years, and that was a really beautiful part of my recovery and getting myself. I don't think I mentioned that in that part of my reclamation was 16 years
Yeah.
of sobriety and doing a lot of recovery work. Um, but I wanted him to know that we shared that. So I was very artful in my comments, and then he posted a thing about a poem, and I mentioned, like, ooh, it was from one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver,
Mm.
but I didn't know this poem. And so I remember what I wrote. I said, oh, this is a good one for my poetry medicine purse. And then the next message was not in the comments, it was in the DM section. And I think I sound like a dinosaur right now saying that. In the DM section. Oh God, my teen girls would just be crawling under the table right now. Anyway, I think we all know what I mean.
Oh,
And
I
he
know
said,
what you
ooh,
mean. We
he
all
said,
know what you
ooh,
mean.
what's a poetry medicine purse? And I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. So I started to share with him a lot of my favorite poems that for me are medicine. It's just the thing that can get in there and touch that place in the heart. And so we started sharing poems, and I started to really, really feel something for this man. And we were back and forth, but I hadn't quite closed it. I hadn't closed it completely with this other relationship. And I was feeling really out of integrity because I was really having feelings. So one of my next messages was like, vulnerability alert. We have to stop communicating because I'm really crushing on you, and I'm not complete in my last relationship yet. And when Amir tells the story, he remembers exactly where he was when he got that message. And he's like, all I heard was she has feelings for me. Nothing else mattered. And long story short, we decided we were both feeling very real things, and both wanted to be together in fullness, wholeness, and integrity. So we were at this crossroads. Okay, what do we do? We're both have like half an arm hanging off. We're still ending things. So we decided to take a note from this David Whyte poem called Winter Apple, which speaks about themes of patience and ripeness and timing. And yeah, there's this beautiful visual of finally taking the apple off the branch, like a 2 full months after you should have taken it down. He says, you do, and you bite in, and he describes just the lushness of the weight and all that brings. And so I said, what if we take a page from David Whyte and we meet in 2 months? And so we set the date. He sent me, he's like, here's the date, here's my address, see you then. And and then there's about a book this thick. I made a book later of all that transpired between that moment and that point 2 months later, there was many, many writings. We never spoke voice to voice. I scoured the internet and I found some talk he did to martial arts students, their black belt graduation, and so just so I could hear his voice. And he did render me some poems and send me some poems, but it was a very old school, beautiful courting where like almost by messenger pigeon, we would send notes back and forth, although it was over Facebook. It was not over text, it was all over Facebook. um, and I fell in love. We fell in love that way. So by the time that 2 month mark came, our it was strange. Our bodies had to catch up with what was already woven together energetically and through the heart. Um, he was shorter than I thought he'd be when I met him.
Oh gosh, I really, really love this story. And as I've said to you before, when I came to your 50th birthday party, which you were so gracious in including me in, the love in your circle of friends and family was so beautiful. And you really gave a masterclass in receiving love and giving it and holding it for all of us. So tell me about what it's been like to step into working together and shepherding an embodied experience for others, for men and women, and the dynamic change that occurs when you're doing that together, as
Mm.
opposed to the privacy and intimacy of your relationship.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things to do is co-creating an experience, holding space, and yeah, shepherding a journey for people and an experience for people with my husband, built out of the magic that I think we are somehow blessed to share together. So I feel like it's birth. The birthplace is our love, and whether or not the offering has to do with romantic love, which normally it doesn't, but that's the birthplace. I mean, it's also the energetic principle of when two things come together in unity, then like this third thing is born. So I feel like when we get to co-create together, this third thing is born, and it feels just so alive and so satisfying to create with Amir outside of the home. I mean, we create a lot within our home, but to do it outside our home and to have our our unity be, I really feel like it's a beacon of light, and I feel really honored to be able to hold that beacon of light for our community, for whoever chooses to enter that space with us. And yeah, to use that um, to really be in service, to really be in service of other people, then whatever that light does for other people. And most of that's none of my business. I just we're able to we hold the space, we hold the practices, and then the magic and the beauty and the life and the love and the God that happens within that is really none of my business. It's my delight, but it's none of my business in a way. And it's just so satisfying to be able to create and paint and uh, birth magic with my beloved and
Yeah,
share that with other people.
birthing, it's just such a beautiful image, isn't it? In terms of birth,
Messy and beautiful.
messy and beautiful. You're called to do things in your life. So, what was the calling for you to open circle,
Mm.
to invite women to sit in circle with you? How did that calling come about?
Well, so I found myself in a very different place than when I first became a mother. That place of all I want to do is be a mother. Uh, just feeling into the entry point. Bear with me for a second. It was, I started to feel as the years unfolded, being a mother, I started to feel this pull of what is mine to share? What is my purpose? What is beyond being a mother? I mean, that is whole and complete in and of itself. Deepest, greatest journey of my life. Like, like my deepest spiritual practice is being a mother. And there was this thing, this like longing to have another aspect of myself be birthed, be known. And I spent many years, many workshops, many retreats with this angst almost of what is mine. I'm looking around and being so inspired by these women that just they're so clear on what their thing is. But the mirror was very clear. I did not yet know what mine was. And I spent many years in that, the not knowing. And that, but also I've been a seeker and a collector and of information and of practice and you just, from body work to being a doula to the embodiment work to just all the initiations and the tantra and the archetypal work and feminine mystery schools, it all, I realized collecting it all in this big sort of cauldron. One day I just realized, oh, I don't need to search for it. It's so much simpler than I think. It's just the amalgamation of who I am. That is mine to share and give.
Yes.
And so that transposed with this crazy portal that was COVID. COVID allowed me to kind of get through all the resistance I had to technology and realizing, wow, Zoom is such a gift.
Yeah.
It's so easy. I'm my house is about 20 feet that way. I'm in my little tea room right now. So all I have to do is walk into my tea room, turn on the computer, invite some people, and we get to be together. So the circle's birthed out of me really wanting connection and community and wanting a space to practice together and move together and sound together and just like be deep and wide in all the ways together. And there wasn't a space for that, at least in the way that I was dreaming it, the way I was wanting it. So, yes, it really was that adage of be the change you want to see in the world, create that thing that you're wanting. And so Zoom and COVID made that really clear to me. And my first circle was really simple. I invited amazing women in my life, and I said, I'm going to try this thing and come and let's be together. And it was a really organic unfolding. I literally just shared all the practices that I was already doing in my life. So I look back now to that version of me that was really so angsty for so many years, just wallowing in like, what's mine? What's my thing? And it was there all along. And I mean, that's such a metaphor. It's such a metaphor for all of us and like really thinking it's harder, more complicated or fancier, more sophisticated. It's just, it's all right here. It's all right here. And that's a really big part of my work is slowing down, getting still and just really meeting what is here in the moment. And there's so much information and peace and wisdom in the moment when we can really, really slow down and dive underneath the chaos into this one of my teachers, Maya Luna, calls the deep feminine current of reality that's always here. But like, how do we get there? And that journey is really fun to take. And then being in that flow, and the yeah, the knowledge, the wisdom, the pleasure, the aliveness that's available there is fun to play in as well.
It's
Hmm.
delicious. So, for somebody listening who has never sat in circle with other women, whether it be in person or over Zoom or at a meeting of any description, what's the magic of circle for you when women come together?
Oh man, it's beyond me. It is this ancient code that I think that we just hold. And I often say, we could just all gather in a room, have like no plan, no agenda. In fact, that's the best way. Have to do anything, just be together. And it's like this magic women have. We just know what's needed in the moment. Like we can feel each other. It's that thing that, a woman comes over and can look around your house and just, I don't know, folds a towel or does the dishes or just sits with you. Like we just know. And we also have this incredible permission medicine for each other, which happens less over Zoom, I'll say. But like yesterday, I held an in person event. And what's so beautiful about women and our permission medicine is we free each other through our own embodiment. And what I mean is, like I was telling the women yesterday when guiding them through movement, if you get in your head or you feel lost or you feel like you don't know what you're doing, just open your eyes and look around. There'll be another woman who inspires you, or is like, oh, I'm gonna try that, or she looks really weird over there. Okay, it's really okay to be weird. Or you hear another
Yeah.
woman's exhale, or a sound, or a moan, or a cry, and you can just feel it. It unlocks something, and it's beyond anything I can describe with words. It's this felt sense, this ancient thing that we hold as women, as the bearers of life. Like we are the vessel that life, we literally change energy into matter. I mean, it's really, really wild when you think about it. And so there is just this, I love being a woman. I love it so much. And I love guiding other women into falling back in love with themselves when they truly come home to themselves in a really true way, beyond what they want to be, but like what they actually are.
Mm. I want to ask you how tea ceremony is weaving itself into the tapestry of how you're holding space and how that came into your life and how you welcomed it in.
Oh, tea has been such a beautiful, beautiful ally for me. The tea itself, the plant spirit of the tea has just been such a beautiful ally. And then the ritual and the beauty and all the elements of the ritual. It's just been something, it really held me through, again, that COVID portal. I discovered tea about a year before everything shut down. I found it through my dear friend Satya, who had been going to tea for many, many months, if not years. And she would call me in the car after tea every time, so, so consistently. It was annoying because now she would rave about it. And in the back of my brain, I'd almost roll my eyes like, okay, it's tea. I get it. What's the big deal? But she knew what I didn't know. She knew there was something there for me. And when I finally went
Mm.
to a tea ceremony with her, partly because I knew I trust her and I'm like, okay. And partly probably to just get her to stop calling me after. Not really. I mean, I'm being silly, but I walked up the stairs and the door opened to the tea room and it took my breath away. I started to cry immediately, which is a very good thing. That's my barometer to um I don't know, when something is very real. Uh and I was so touched by the beauty, by the pace, yeah, the slowness, the intentionality of every object, and just the space that the ritual and the tea itself opened up for me to be, feel me, to catch up to myself, to catch up to my life. Life is this modern day life, it's just moved so
Mm.
fast. And depending on how your life is configured, for me, I've got a lot of people that I care for. I've got a house full of kids and a husband and this beautiful life I've said yes to, and it moves really fast and it's dense and it's like I I I sense it a lot as the ocean. And when the waves come in and you get up and then another wave can tackle you from behind and you're getting up again, you're like, whoa. It's like these waves just keep coming. And to just be able to sit in tea and its beautiful simplicity and have the ritual of it hold you, hold me, is a beautiful gift and something that deeply spoke to me. And I sat with tea every day, similar to how I am right now, leaves in a bowl. My tea teacher said, there's a lot of beautiful teaware. There's these side handle pots, and there's a lot of, like, the kettles are beautiful. There's beauty. That's part of the healing. Beauty stops the mind. Beauty makes life living,
Oh,
you
yes.
know? And I think it's, at least for me, I wanted all the beautiful fancy teaware, but my teacher was, no, you sit with leaves in a bowl, which literally you put the leaves in a bowl and you don't need a fancy kettle. You just need a rice bowl and you pour the hot water in and you sit that way. And I sat that way for 6 months, every day, leaves in a bowl. And you get very intimate with it. And it really held me. And I learned a lot in that time. And it coincided with the circles. A lot coincided in that time. And until this point, or until yesterday, in fact, I've held tea and my other work, which is somatics and embodiment and little flair of like archetypal shamanic threads woven in, those kind of journey. They've been separate. And yesterday I actually held my first event where they were woven together, because after the last two or three tea ceremonies, and we drink about 6 to 7 bowls of tea in a ceremony in a 1 hour time period, you start to get a little, there's a term for it, it's called tea drunk. And a lovely place to be. There's this very calm, alert state that this plant, Camellia sinensis, creates, this calm, alert place. And after every tea ceremony in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, afterwards, became clear that it wanted to move. Something more wanted to happen.
Mm.
And it's such a beautiful thing for me, having these two worlds. I'm like, oh, I can actually start to weave them together. What if we sit in stillness with tea and meet all those places within, and then seamlessly go into a more of a somatic exploration or a somatic integration of all those places. And so kind of experimented yesterday with that, and it was really, really beautiful. There'll be many more.
Oh, it's so exciting. I cannot wait to partake in that when I'm in
Yes.
town. It's so interesting what you were saying about allowing yourself to catch up with your life. and inviting in the stillness and the slow. Life is so fast, and we often don't value still and slow. And then allowing ourselves to be in the flow of where the movement of our own internal rhythm takes us, as opposed to being carried by that of others. And knowing your medicine, it just really touches me. So, following along from this idea of birthing that we've been constellating around and inviting in, you giving yourself permission to hold what is yours and share with the world and birth it and invite others to swim around with it. How do you continue to share what's yours when it's not fully formed within you yet? How do you hold
Yeah,
that?
good question. Yeah, how to do that when it's not fully formed. I think it requires, for me, just a continued listening. I mean, I know at this point,
Mm,
I mean, there's so many beautiful things about being 50, reaching this this
yes.
age. It's so wonderful because there's so much to look back on and see how we're so held. See how I can see like, oh, all those times I was sure, just sure it wasn't going to work out. It always does. All those times of confusion or murkiness or not knowing, given enough time, space, and care, it always clarifies. And so I take that into any moments now of the not knowing to really just tell myself it's first of all, it's okay to not know and slow down that part of me that I think we probably all have, that part that so wants to know, that part that wants certainty. But there's so much juice in the not knowing. There's so much humility.
Yes.
That's when I'm closest to God. That's where whatever you want to call that thing that's beating our hearts and breathing our chests right now. Like that's when I'm close, when I'm on my knees and I'm not knowing and I'm in the mystery and I'm listening. As much as I want to know, I realize there's a lot of beauty in the not knowing. So it forces me to listen and slow down. And, I teach that not because I'm like an evolved master in it, but because I need it. I can teach it because that's the thing I've needed. So I've practiced it and practiced it and practiced it. So now it's mine to give. I'm maybe a couple steps along the path than somebody that might just be starting to do that. And so I have some hints about where I think my work might evolve into. Really valuing and
Mm,
seeing the pieces that are mine. Like there's pieces from motherhood and some really I think my darkest initiations are the things that eventually turn into the gold from which to serve from. So there's been very challenging aspects to my mothering and my children. And because of that, there's something there. Again, not fully formed, but I'm listening, and it's similar to how I listened to there was something that wanted to happen after tea and I sat with it enough and listened. It's
mm,
like it's almost
yeah.
like, oh, who talks about this beautifully is Rilke. And there's this quote he says about, oh, I beg you to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart. Treat them, what does he say? Treat them like locked rooms or books written in a foreign language that you can't understand yet, because it's really yours to live into live the questions themselves. And I'm butchering this quote, but it's something like that. And it truly is, it's like a
Yeah.
language, a foreign language. Um, so just like I learned French in middle school, and I didn't practice it much, and I can barely speak it now. So it's that use it or lose it thing. I say this often when I work with women and learning the language of their bodies. It's like learning a foreign language. The more you listen and give it attention and practice it, you become fluent. So likewise, I trust if I listen to this unknown language of what's evolving and what's next, similar to how I listen to the tea and what it wants to weave itself into the somatics. I guess we'll see what there is to come.
Yeah. Yeah. And allowing. It's such an exercise in that, isn't it?
Allowing.
Allowing, which I struggle with on a daily basis. I have to mindfully um, put myself in that place for sure. You were speaking about being called to share what you need. What is something that you need right now that is escaping you, that you're going to be inviting in? Is there something right now?
Well, since I was little, since the time way back when I was a little girl and all I ever knew I wanted to be was a mother, I also had this vision that would come up when I was in need, in an emotional need, and I would have this vision, this desire, this fantasy of having this big. In my vision, she was a big black round mama, and I would go and I would lay in her lap, and she was just soft and ample, and I would just lay in her lap, and she would just embrace me and stroke my hair, and there was almost this sense of she could hold whatever I brought, and it was just this sense of it's going to be okay, baby. And I've always needed that. I've always wanted that, and I still do. I still want that. I would love to have that experience of that holding. And for me now, I see her as she's an elder. She's a mentor. She's somebody who's walked a couple steps beyond me. She's somebody who has touched deep grief in motherhood. So that is what I dream about and need. I want to be held by an elder woman who has been through it
Mm.
and still dances in the light. And I sense I am
Oh,
that. I am also that to other women.
yes, you are.
But I really want that
Yes.
too. I've been calling her in for a while. I want to just rest in her lap.
Oh, oh, I cannot wait to hear about that when she arrives because you are calling her in now. I always close every episode with the same question. And really, as I was listening to you, you answered it somewhat when we were just speaking earlier about calling things in. But for somebody who has a dream in their heart, which is all of us, and doesn't feel like they have what it takes to make it happen, what would you say to them?
Oh gosh, first of all, like what a human thing to feel. And gosh, do I get it? And I still grapple with it. I grapple with it every time. Not on not when I work with someone one on one. That's a very different animal for me. But when I create any other offering, whether it's a circle or an event like I did yesterday, and it also doesn't happen with tea, but I'm digressing. My point is it still happens to me years and decades later, that piece, that self-doubt piece. And when it comes up, what I've recognized is it's a self it's when I'm self-referencing. And my remedy for that is to remember something greater, remembering my why am I doing this, why does it matter, what is like what do I serve and who do I serve? and letting that be the only thing that matters, and being willing to not get it right, being willing to be judged, being willing to have it be messy, have it be inarticulate, have it flop if it needs to. Like, give your imperfect offering. And for me, it's just remembering, like, I'm serving something greater than me, and that is really life itself, as it moves through each of us. And may women touch that place, remember that place in themselves. So it's not, and that can come through many different means, and it doesn't have to be perfect, polished. It can be really simple. So it really is that switch from, like, from the me place to that greater field, and being willing to look like a fool. And that's no small ask. Being able to tolerate, like, even just stuff on a nervous system level, being able to tolerate all that comes up when we're putting ourselves in the position to look like a fool, to crash and burn,
Yeah.
to be judged. Like, we're wired for belonging, and to put yourself in that position, it's a big ask. um so
I just love sharing your imperfect offering. Thank you for this beautiful conversation and for holding space with me.
thank you.
I will see you in
Thank you,
circle.
Tess.
So many beautiful takeaways. Honoring the process of becoming, honoring our experiences as initiation portals that open up new places within us and herald in the next chapter of experience and understanding of ourselves, even if it's dark and painful. When she said, my darkest initiations are the things that turn into the gold from which to serve from. And having the courage to walk away from what is not mine, that there's a sovereignty that comes with knowing that I can trust myself to do the hardest and most courageous thing because I value myself and my life. And celebrating the sacred cycle of endings and beginnings, that endings give us permission to welcome in the new knowing. And acknowledging and celebrating the stories we carry in our bodies as women, that we're always birthing, not necessarily babies, but ideas and new versions of ourselves through the body, and the power of getting in touch with that womb wisdom. And learning the language of your body is like learning a foreign language. The more you listen and give it attention and practice, the more fluent you become. And I appreciated what she was saying about being the embodiment of our lessons, that it's not what we're saying or the lessons we teach, it's the lessons we're living and how we're being. And I appreciated her sharing about reclaiming her sensuality and sexuality and redefining pleasure, the beauty of claiming that piece for yourself. When she said, I came to understand that my pleasure is mine and that I have it to share with somebody else, but it's not about somebody else giving it to me. And gosh, when she talked about giving yourself the space to catch up, that really resonated with me. We often don't give ourselves time, or we don't have the practices to be able to do that. And so when you don't know the next step and you're feeling frustrated about that, honoring the not knowing and sitting in the questions, slowing down and telling that part of yourself that wants certainty that it's okay to not know, that all of the confusion or murkiness, given enough time, space, and care, always clarifies. That there's so much juice and beauty and humility in not knowing. I loved when she recounted that beautiful quote about having patience with everything unresolved in your heart, treating them like locked rooms or books written in a foreign language that you can't understand. So live into the question and live the questions themselves. When I'm on my knees not knowing, I'm in the mystery and I'm listening. That's when I'm the closest to God, however you understand that. And being a seeker and collector of information, experiences, and practices, I love how she talks about collecting it in this big cauldron and celebrating your age and experience, because there's so much to remember and draw from. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, not sure what to do, slow down, get still, dive under the chaos so you can listen to the peace and wisdom in the moment, the deep feminine current of reality, as Maya Luna calls it. And being the change that you want, creating the thing that you want. Give your imperfect offering with love. Give yourself permission to be a fool, be messy, crash and burn, remembering that you're serving something greater. And if you have not experienced the power and magic of a women's circle for connection and community, oh, Keri's circle is so beautiful. It really offers this exquisite space to practice and move and sound together. I loved when she said to be deep and wide in all the ways together. And being in circle with other women is like holding an ancient code that there's a magic women have by just being together, that we know what's needed in the moment, and we have this incredible permission medicine to free ourselves and each other through our own embodiment. And tea ceremony really is beautiful. My friend Shiva introduced me to it many years ago in LA, and I love the way Keri described it, the slowness, the intentionality, and the tea itself opens up a space for you to catch up to yourself and the fast pace of life. The beauty and simplicity of the ritual stops the mind. And you drink quite a number of bowls of tea in a 1 hour time period, and you do get tea drunk. So you can sit in the stillness and explore that lovely calm alert place. And she said, beauty makes life more healing. Oh, doesn't it? And I love the poetry medicine purse. Oh, I'm going to take that on, right? It really is the medicine that can get in there and touch that place in your heart. And definitely check out that David Whyte poem, Winter Apple, that she was talking about. It's really, really beautiful. So Keri was talking about how she wanted to be whole and be in a relationship with another whole person. And her and Amir were both doing their individual work on themselves, and then the work that they put in together as a couple, that energetic weaving together from the heart. So Keri's helping women in her ceremonies. Amir is the founder of Embodied Masculine. He's working with men, and then together they're holding space to shepherd in that embodied experience for other people using the light that they create together as the beacon. It's really, really beautiful. So you can connect with Keri at wayoftheelements.com. All of her links are in the show notes. I'm really interested to hear about what your experience has been with somatics and embodiment work. If you're part of a women's circle, if you have gone to tea ceremony, what your experience has been with some of these practices, please leave a review and share in the Facebook group. I'm excited to hear about it.
I want to hear about your It Has to Be Me story. So head on over to ithastobeme.com/stories to share it in our free community. You can also join the conversations we're having about this episode and others. I'm Tess Masters. Join me next week and we'll dive inside another great story to help us go from dreaming to doing.